On today's episode of Out of Office Bros, we got the Colorado State Rams Air Force preview, Hard Knocks episode 2, the Buffs brawl, and do we really need the preseason? This is Out of Office Bros, let's hit it. Hello, our listeners. We are the Out of Office Bros. Today on our podcast, we're going to be discussing the Colorado State Rams and Air Force Falcons football. Mr. Scotty L., who should we start with? Should we talk about the Colorado State Rams? Do we start with Air Force? Who do you want to talk about first, buddy?
You know what? Let's go with little brother never gets their shine, so let's go with the sheep up north.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. I'm absolutely down to talk about Colorado State football because for me, so I live up in northern Colorado. So a lot of the people that I talk to about sports, a lot of the professionals all went to CSU, and they're always talking to me about Dion. They're like, "Oh my God, are you so excited about the Buffs?" And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely I am. But aren't you excited about your Rams? You guys got a new coach last year, an absolute stud out of Nevada. I think he's trying to turn things around. Aren't you excited?" And I haven't gotten like a necessarily positive response from anybody, just probably because of the way the last year went, right?
Yeah, that's got to be part of it. That's got to play a role. But, at the end of the day, I think that's also just kind of CSU fan in general. I'm personally a big Jay Norvell fan. I have alumni in my family of Colorado State. I liked that hire for them. And I have no hatred towards the Rams when the Buffs aren't playing them. Like, at the end of the day, they're little brother. I want them to succeed and be somewhat relevant, so that way when we do play them, it actually matters. But I don't get why they're not excited. They have a quality coach. They have a quarterback that was recruited by numerous Power Fives back when he was a high school recruit. And they have an NFL-ready receiver. They have a team. They have a squad, and they got that fancy new stadium on campus that beer deck looks awesome. I admittedly have not been to their campus yet, or to that stadium yet for a game, but the beer deck looks awesome. The stadium's beautiful. I mean, even though it's the size of a Texas high school football stadium and they can't even fill it, it's a beautiful stadium. Go to a game. Go Sheep fan. Go enjoy your team. Support the team. That's going to lead to wins too.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I wanted to talk about was their quarterback. I mean, the dude got thrown to the wolves last year. I mean, you come in as a true freshman, you're probably not expecting to play, and if you are, it's going to be at the end of the season. But I mean, he got thrown in there, and their offensive line was horrible.
Yeah.
Their defense overall didn't play that bad, and this year they're returning 8 of 11 starters. I mean, I feel like their defense is really going to take a leap forward this year. And then you talked about it. Jay Norvell's offense is based on quick hits from the quarterback, 3-step drops, quarterback dumps it off, and then trying to establish a ground game. And it worked for him in Nevada because he had super athletic quarterbacks. Is it Clay Millen, I believe?
Yeah, it's Clay.
He looks like a prototypical quarterback. And I think he's faster than a lot of people give him credit for, so they probably could be like run a lot of that kind of offense, but that quick hit sort of 3-step drop, hit the wide open receiver is the reason that old buddy, gosh dang it, I do not know the names as well as the receiver, Tony Horton. I mean, the dude caught 71 balls, 1,131 yards, and 8 touchdowns last year. The quarterback, Clay Millen, didn't have a second receiver necessarily, but that's a really good stat line. Like you said, that's an NFL receiver type of numbers. That's somebody that's going to get drafted.
Yeah, I mean, that kid's going to be playing on Sundays. Clay Millen is a solid quarterback. He really is. I mean, I remember back during his recruitment, CU was going after him, and he was number 1 on their board. We ended up with, I think that year was Brendan Lewis is who we ended up signing. It was the Mel Tucker recruiting class. But yeah, we were going after him, and we went after him hard. he is a good quarterback. He can play. He wanted to play in Norvell's offense. He was one of the most, actually, might have been the most efficient passer last year in all of FBS, which is an insane stat out of Colorado State.
Yeah. I read yesterday that he had a 71% completion percentage. I mean, that's really,
Yeah,
really good. But I think that is a lot of Jay Norvell's offense. Again, it's the quick
a
hits,
lot of it is.
getting the ball to the receiver ASAP.
No, absolutely, and that's a big part of it. And the other part of it was his O line was absolute trash. I mean, they couldn't stop a paper bag in the wind. It
Right.
was brutally bad. And looking at the Rams this year, they were picked seventh in the Mountain West Conference as their highest kind of, hey, this is where we're going to land. I think a lot of the expectation has to be kind of similar to the Buffs. Around a 6-6 season would be ideal. Where that shows progress, that shows that things are moving in the right direction. It's going to be a slower change, I think, at CSU than it will be at Colorado.
Yeah.
But they
Well,
do have
I
a good
mean,
team.
people don't know who Jay Norvell is. People know who Deion Sanders is. That's why.
Yes, the celebrity helps. But I took a quick look at their schedule and just kind of did a win-loss prediction in my mind.
Yeah.
They open up with three really tough games. They got Wazoo at home. I like the Cougs a lot this year. I think they are a dark horse for the Pac-12 North. They have a really quality quarterback. They've got some playmakers on the outside. Their system's solid. That's going to be an L at CU. I think the talent discrepancy is just there. And I mean, let's be real. They couldn't beat us when we were on our worst stretch in program history. That doesn't look good for them. And then at Middle Tennessee State, I think that's an L too. Middle Tennessee State is one of those mid-major teams. They're a really good program. They have been for a long time. They run a fast-paced offense. It's not going to look good for the Rams at the start. I honestly had them going about 4-8 this season, and that fourth game is a toss-up because it's at Hawaii, and we know how teams perform on the island.
Right.
It could be a rough year for the Rammies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do think things are trending up for them. And that's the thing. I think Jay Norvell is going to get the program in the right direction. It's just a matter of, well, one, if he stays, because I think he's a phenomenal college football coach. But then two, can they recruit players that are there or that are going to go and play in Fort Collins? I mean,
Yeah,
if
they have
kid,
some solid recruits.
I mean, they do absolutely. One of the key players that I kind of wanted to talk about was Muhammad Kamara, who's their edge rusher.
Lineman.
Yeah, the dude on the outside was an absolute beast last year. Had 8.5 sacks, 16 tackles for loss. I mean, he's a game wrecker. And I can only imagine with another year, or I guess another off season of lifting, of probably getting quicker is what I would imagine. I almost see kind of a Shaq Barrett sort of thing, where the guy could be a late round pick and then end up being a gem for some NFL team later.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a big question for me with CSU, when you talk about Mohamed Kamara, do you know what year he is or eligibility wise, what he is right now?
If I remember right, he's a junior.
Okay, that's good. One thing that really worries me for the future outlook of CSU is in this new era of the transfer portal of NIL, can they hold on to any guys that suddenly blow up? Especially if they're a freshman or a sophomore, can they keep them around, or even a junior? I think they have to be worried about because you don't always know if someone's going to go from CSU to the NFL as a junior, but they could go from CSU to USC or CSU to Tennessee. Like, can you hold on to this talent? And I think that's where the transfer portal and NIL is really going to play a role for those smaller schools. Is they have to re-recruit their own players every year. Not saying that CU doesn't, we do, but I feel like it's going to hurt those G5 schools a lot more than it's going to hurt
the
big
five.
One of the big three.
Yeah.
Whatever we want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, it really isn't a Power 5 anymore. It's a big three. It really is. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you with that. I don't. I think a lot of players or individuals, like individual dudes, have completely ruined the idea of the transfer portal because they're going for exposure when it was supposed to meant to be hey, I don't fit in this offensive system. I feel like I would thrive better here. Or I recruited to this coach, not this program, so I'm going to go with where the coach went. And I think that a lot of it now is due to the NIL and that people are going to transfer because of that.
Oh, absolutely. And, we saw it affect the Buffs negatively a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Where we lost,
Big time.
Christian Gonzalez, we lost Brendan Rice, and we saw it benefit us in a big way this year with Kari Mans and Jimmy Horn Jr., Shador, Travis, all these big games coming into Boulder now. But at the end of the day, like, you're not seeing that go to a G5 school. You're not seeing these guys, unless they have major character issues from a Power 5, drop down a level, or unless they've been told we don't have a spot for you, like what happened to 80% of the Buffs roster from last season.
Right.
So it's going to be an interesting year for the Rams, but let's dive into what I personally is going to be the best college football team in the state in the Air Force Academy Falcons.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. Who was the number one defense in all of FBS last year?
I wrote this down because I was surprised, but go on ahead and remind me.
It is the Air Force fucking Falcons, dude.
Who would have thought the cadets are balling out on me?
Well, and I mean, you do a little bit more of a deep dive into it, and a lot of it is because the offense does control the clock. They run the option, so it's a lot of running the ball, and they were averaging 38 minutes a game, which to the novice college football fan, that is 38 out of 60. That is controlling the clock.
It's insane what they were able to accomplish last year. It's funny because Troy Calhoun, he's a guy that his name seemingly comes up for every single open Power 5 job, but it just hasn't panned out for him. He's entering his 18th season, 18, as a college football coach at Air Force Academy, as the head coach at the Air Force Academy.
Yeah.
That sort of longevity is insane. There are very few coaches with that out there. He's a damn good coach. His teams are disciplined. They're going to have some challenges this year. I'm going to shoot you straight. I'm in for them to be the best team in Colorado this year for college football. Record-wise, I also do think, honestly, that they would probably be the Buffs heads up just because we don't handle that offense well. And that's the other part about what makes Air Force so good is they are so hard to game plan for because of that offense. You mentioned that they run the option. You almost have to take a week and a half to 2 weeks during training camp to install that defense because you're not doing it on a game week.
Right. I mean, you have to stack the box when you play the option. That's the only way.
Yeah, and even then, Air Force has shown the propensity. They only threw 41 passes last year, but they've shown the propensity to not be afraid to take a deep shot down the field. And, you're going to sell out on the run all day and hope that they beat you in the air, but you got to stop them on the ground, and that's hard to do with a team like that. It really is. But they did lose some big talent. They lost their quarterback, Hazik Daniels. He's unbelievable. He shredded the Buffs last year. And they also lost, get ready for this, their leading rusher, who was a fullback. Love that. Bring back the fullback.
It's 1,700 yards.
Brad Roberts.
1,700 yards.
He had an insane year. Now, they're returning most of their O-line. They did lose a tackle to graduation, who was the anchor of that line, but they still have 4 returning starters. They're returning their number 2 running back, who, as a number 2, had 766 yards last year.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
And they reloaded a quarterback. They've got Jensen Jones. He's a bigger quarterback than Hazik Daniels was. He's a very mobile guy, obviously, to play in that offense. And then on their defense, which we talked about, which was elite, that's the only way to put it, they have an NFL prospect at safety in Trey Taylor. Kid lays the wood. He's kind of like Trevor Woods for the Buffs, for any CU fans out there. Just not afraid to drop the hammer on some people. He's got great speed. He's good in coverage. He's a really, really solid safety. He could be playing on Sundays. But outside of that defense stat that you mentioned, the other one that caught me by surprise was, did you see what their third quarter scoring average was? Or what their differential was all of last year?
No.
Air Force Academy. This startled me. In the third quarter alone in 2022, they outscored their opponents 107-19.
What?
They had almost 100-point differential in the third quarter for the season.
So that's coming out of the locker room and saying, and the coaches telling them like, hey, you know how we win this game? We control the clock. Guess what? Fullback dive. Trap.
And they just impose their will on teams.
Yes. Holy cow, man.
They're an incredibly good team. They're an incredibly sound football team. I actually have them going 10-2 this year, with their only losses being at San Jose State. San Jose State has the top quarterback in the conference. Kid's going to play on Sundays. He'll probably be second, third round pick, maybe even sneak his way into the first. So I have that as a loss, plus it's on the road. And then I only have them losing to Boise State in the last game of the season, also on the road. I have them winning the Commander-in-Chief trophy, beating Army and Navy. I have them smoking CSU. I have them smoking Wyoming. I think they go 10-2 this year and genuinely have a conversation for like a New Year's Six bowl, because they're going to be that good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you're able, and if they pull one out against San Jose State or Boise State, I mean, they definitely could be in that conversation, depending on the other teams that those guys beat. Like, I mean, obviously we'd have to look at Boise State and San Jose State's out of conference games, but if there's a couple ranked opponents that they either hang in there or beat, and then Air Force beats them, for sure they'll be on one of those New Year's Six games. For sure.
Yeah, I think the only thing that would hold Air Force back is they don't have a hard out of conference schedule. They're not playing any ranked opponents. They're not playing any Power Five. Their out of conference is honestly laughable. It's Robert Morris and Sam Houston State, and then they've got Army Navy, which are considered out of conference games. But other than that, man, they're going to play some good teams. They're going to play San Diego State. That's always a quality team. That game is always a slugfest. I think the final score last year was like 13-3 in that game, just a real defensive battle. They got Boise State on the schedule. That's going to be a tough game. At San Jose State, that's a tough game. At Colorado State, it's a rivalry-ish. I think Air Force wins that by end of half. To be honest, I think that game's over. So it's going to be a great year for the Falcons in my eyes. People down in the Springs, please go support them. I can't find it in myself to say a bad word about the Academy, and I don't think I ever will. Rooting for them. I think they're a well-coached team and a great football team.
Do you think that they're definitely the one Colorado team that you can almost guarantee a bowl game?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they're obviously going to be in a bowl. I don't see CSU getting there, and I think CU's got the talent to get there. I think they have the potential. We'll have to see. Some things are going to have to go their way, because CU plays one of the hardest schedules in college football this year.
Yeah.
So it will be tough, but I'll definitely be supporting that blue and white come bowl season if black and gold isn't an option.
And that's something that I've always talked to other Colorado football fans about, is that like if any of the teams are in bowl games, you got to root for them, regardless of what your feelings are. I mean, if you're a diehard CU fan, but CSU makes a bowl and we don't, please root for little brother. I mean, come on, like anything honestly for national exposure for the state of Colorado, you should be rooting for.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and it's more just fun to get under Ram fans' skins, all six of them, than it is to actually root against State, because at the end of the day, they're in the Mountain West. They've never been in our division, in our conference. Honestly, they haven't really been relevant for most of their existence, to us, at least, outside of the Bradley Van Pelt years, which were awesome, and Sonny Lubick was a great coach. But, okay, Rams, go for it. Like, if you guys want to get all butthurt and pissy about CU, that's fine. Comes with the territory being Big Brother. But we're going to cheer for you. We're going to be all right with you if you guys make a bowl. Like, good for you all. You did it in a weaker conference, and have fun. You're going to get smoked by Wazoo just like last time.
Right. Well, you never know what happens, but yeah. All
Fair.
right. Well, switching subjects a little bit here. I kind of wanted to talk about the Buffs. Um,
Yeah.
saw the scuffle break out at practice the other day, and I thought it was awesome. I feel like you need competition like that every single day. But then Dion came out and said something you had mentioned before we hopped on the show.
Yeah, first off, I agree with you. I think, the scuffle, I have no issues with it. You see it in training camps all the time.
Yo,
We're
yeah,
going to dive into hard knocks later in this episode, and you saw one in that. It's what happens in football. It's what happens when you get a bunch of dudes that live in the gym, that play an aggressive game around each other that much. It's going to happen. And what Dion did, he obviously went in, he broke up the fight during that practice. But as he was talking to the team and lecturing the team, he wasn't mad about the fight. He was mad about the two guys that didn't get in. He went off, and his direct quote was, "If one fights, we all fight." First off, there are a couple things on that. I love that mentality. I think, one thing that's been lacking here is fight, first and foremost, for CU since 2016. I saw them in 17 blow it like a 33-point lead to Oregon State on homecoming.
yeah,
I saw Carl Durrell teams quit in the first quarter. I saw them quit at Air Force last year after the first snap when JT Shrout fumbled it. Bring this into the team. I agree with Dion. I'm not saying go out there and get thrown out of the game, but go back your teammates. Fight for that man in the trench alongside you. It's what needs to happen. I think this mentality in Boulder is changing, and it's changing rapidly, and that's what we needed. I don't know. I know some people are saying like that's a dumb way of thinking. You're going to get your whole team thrown out, or oh yeah, real leader of men, Dion. I'm sorry, it's football. Get over it. Get the fuck over it. Let's see some fight. The Buffs haven't had it for a long time.
yeah, and that's. I mean, I think that the media that is like bringing that up are they're not in it every single day. They don't see the day to day kind of struggle that they're going through during summer practice and this training camp. So they don't see how many times that these dudes are running into each other, are in the weight room together, are trying to like gain a competitive edge on one another. And for people, just like you said, to come out and say like, "Oh yeah, real leader of men, Dion, like teaching your kids to get into a fight," you're not there. You don't understand what they're going through. They had probably been out there for 3 hours already. Of course, they're frustrated.
Right.
Like I
And
played
here's the
football.
other
I
thing.
played football in high school, which isn't even close to this kind of level. And was after being out in pads for 30 minutes, you're like, oh, God, this is uncomfortable, man. I want to take these pads off. This sucks, especially in this
Hey, and
Colorado
I
heat
mean,
where it's 90 freaking degrees.
yeah, and I mean, here's the other part about this. You think this shit doesn't happen at Alabama or Georgia or LSU? Like, come on.
Right.
Give me a break. This is happening in the pros.
So why is it getting? Is it just because Dion's the coach and it's his first year at a new team that this national media is coming out and asking questions, and that's the only reason why?
I think there are a couple factors to it. I think, yeah, absolutely. It's Dion's first year. It comes with Dion. I mean, the dude's a superstar in his own right. He's
Yeah.
loud, he's boisterous. The other part is no other program, no NFL team outside of the one that's on Hard Knocks, and even then, no college team is giving access to a program and to their organization like Dion is. We get content every single day, whether that's from DNVR Buffs, who's out of practice, or Adam Munster Tiger on 24/7, or Well Off Media, that's Dion's son that's filming everything, or Reach the People, or God, I mean, the pregame show with his boy Uncle Neely. Like, there is no shortage of Buffs content. I listen to a ton of Buffs podcasts, and I am still 6 episodes behind because of how much there is just on the daily. So yeah, I mean, that's got to play a role too. Is like, I guarantee you there's a fight at Alabama practice. I guarantee you there's fights in the NFL every single day. We just saw one with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce not too long ago. There was one on this Hard Knocks, but you don't hear anyone saying anything about it. It's just an attack on Prime, which, you know what? Fine. He can handle it. He wants that. But those same people that are attacking him when this eventually turns into what he's saying it is going to be better be the first ones owning up to it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. And as soon as the program turns around and everything that he's doing is validated, it's going to be a completely different story. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the sad bias of the national media to go out and do this. Like, do I agree with everything Prime does or says? No, I don't. I don't think anyone ever fully agrees with anybody. But at the end of the day, we brought him in here, and he said it in his opening press conference. He is a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
What did you want to happen? Like, any Buffs fans that were going nuts about this news of him coming to Boulder in the first place and being hyped, guess what? You're going to take this with it. And you need to just sit there and enjoy the ride because this is what we needed. This is what we wanted. And it's already paid dividends. I mean, the Buff Club, the fundraising arm for CU, posted a record high in donations this year. Season tickets are sold out at Folsom Field. One of my buddies had to hop onto my account to get seats because I had a high priority. Like, this is just what it is. And you take the good with the bad. And this is elevating our entire athletics department. Like, he was at the women's soccer game tonight. He was at the women's basketball games during their tournament run. I think we can all remember when he showed up at halftime in his first week being hired to the CSU basketball game. And the crowd went nuts. And then guess what? The men's basketball team went on a 37-4 point run and won. Blew them out. Like, you take the good with the bad. You can't just sit there and clutch your pearls when he does something like this and says, like, oh, if one fight, we all fight. That's good. That's what we needed. Because this team was soft. You saw these players quit. You saw players that were offered their spot transfer out because they didn't want to compete or they didn't want to have that mentality. And what did he do? He brought in guys that have that mentality. He brought in guys from Alabama, Clemson, Florida State that all want to compete and fight. And you know what? That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's how we get a winning program again.
And that's what I was just going to say. It that kind of mentality does build winners. And, until we see results, the national media is going to say things. But then once we do, man, they're just going to – I hope that everybody just shuts up and says, you know what? Dion knows what he's doing. I really think that's what's going to happen. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, if you look at it, and it's like the Bulls back in the day, right? We all know that story about Michael Jordan punching Steve Kerr in the face.
Right.
Or Christian Laettner with Duke punching Bobby Hurley in the face and giving him the hardest time of his life because they needed him. It's what build winners, like you said. And guess what? We've been losers for a long time.
Yeah, and everybody's tired of it, and we did need a shift in mentality, and that's exactly what Dion said. Well, something that you had brought up during talking about that is Hard Knocks and how there was a fight on this episode of Hard Knocks. So I think it's time for our Hard Knocks episode 2 review, which came out last night. Alec, I'm gonna do a little bit of a brain exercise with you. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. 90, 80, 70, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. What's the number you thought of?
16.
Here it is on a drawing board. Like,
that was wild.
Like, I don't completely believe in mentalist kind of stuff, but that was impressive. Every single thing that dude did, I was just like, what?
Oh, the goldfish part?
Yeah.
With Rodgers?
Yeah.
Holy.
And was it Mekhi Becton was the dude who thought of the fish or whatever, thought of the goldfish?
Yeah, because they flipped a book with mascot or animals that have never been an NFL mascot.
Right.
The funniest part about that though was when I don't even know who said it. He was off camera. He was like, "Yo, what if you had said a giraffe?"
Right. Yeah.
I got a kick out of that. Dude, this episode was so much better than episode 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the Hall of Fame game's a joke to begin with. So the fact that we
God.
got to actually see some like real preseason action and the team leading up to it, they did the practice with the Panthers. That little short conversation that they showed with Aaron Rodgers and Bryce Young, I always find that kind of stuff super fascinating. Where a veteran quarterback who's been in this league 17 or 18 years goes up to the young first overall draft pick and says, "Hey man, how's everything going? How's this guy been?" Talking about Andy Dalton, because Andy Dalton is Bryce Young's backup, and Bryce Young's like, "Oh my god, like I owe the world to this guy, pretty much. Like he's taught me. I ask him a million questions, and he's there for me every single detail." I find that stuff super cool.
Oh yeah, no, that's the best part about Hard Knocks is hearing the behind the scenes stuff that you're never going to get here. And I will admit, much to your liking, that I don't think Aaron Rodgers came off as a douche in this episode. I actually enjoyed the Aaron Rodgers content.
Yeah,
It was really good.
yeah. He, like I said in our last when we were talking about episode 1. I mean, I think that the national media gives Aaron Rodgers a lot of flack because he does come off as brash and maybe a little arrogant, but he also has a right to. So, I
Yeah.
mean, 4-time MVP, not not arguably, he's the greatest passer of all time. Um, I think that he can. He's one of those players that elevates a team entirely, and you can see that in Hard Knocks. The coaches are talking about it.
Yeah.
The team is inspired by it. Zach Wilson is literally soaking it all in. You can see it. Like everything Aaron Rodgers says, Zach Wilson is holding on to it and taking it in.
Well, I think that could be because Zach Wilson is holding on to being a quarterback in the NFL. But no, he is doing the right things. He's taking everything in. Rodgers actually seems like he's taken on a mentoring role, which is really good because we all knew his reputation in Green Bay. So it seems like a better situation. It could just be because he actually got to pick where he went versus, having to sit there and watch skill player after skill player get taken off the board before the Packers ever took one. I liked this episode a lot. I still hate Nathaniel Hackett. I can't.
He got worse.
I cannot deal with that guy.
He got worse this episode, dude.
He was the only one that was worse.
There was he said something that they broadcasted that came on the screen, and it was just I don't even remember what the words were, and I was like, the fuck is he talking about?
Dude, half the shit that guy says or does, like Quinn Williams gets a sack and he thinks, "Oh, I'm gonna flip him off, like that'll really affect Quinn Williams of all people." Like
he's like, "Hey Q,
dear God, man,
hey Q, hey Q."
Cool, dude. How old are we? 14, 15?
Right.
Like maybe get your offensive line to stop someone. Like you have. I mean, my God, they took from the Broncos, so their offensive line isn't going to be great because they have Billy Turner and Connor McGovern. And McGovern's a very solid player,
which I noticed. I did notice that this episode. I didn't realize that. But Billy Turner's also Aaron Rodgers' guy, because Billy Turner did have a very good. I can't remember who it was that was on the Packers that got injured. Was it
David Scobuff's
Bakhtiari? Was it Bakhtiari? Bakhtiari was injured, and Billy Turner came in during a little bit of the end of a season into the playoffs and did play really, really well, and that's why we paid him. Not like a super ton, but I mean we paid him a good amount of money. But then we shipped him out of town. He didn't even start for us.
No,
after one season, I mean, so he's just Aaron Rodgers' guy.
He's a decent offensive lineman in this league. I mean, dude's making more than you and I will combine in this lifetime, so good for him. Then you got David Bakhtiari. I mean, he's the best left tackle in the league, so Billy Turner had to fill a big role. He played well. And then Connor McGovern going from Denver to the Jets. I so wish we brought him back during his free agent year because, God, we could use him right now. I think McGovern's a road grader, and I think he plays some good ball. But the Jets are kind of like the Broncos. I'd hate to say it, but there's a lot of hype.
You think they're sus?
Yep, the defense is solid, just like Denver, right? The skill positions on paper look amazing. The quarterback is a Hall of Famer. Do they live up to the hype? Who knows? Right now, the common thread is Nathaniel Hackett, so my bet is no.
Yeah, yeah. Um, did anything else pop out at you during that Hard Knocks episode? I mean, like
Man,
I felt like there was a lot more to like pick on in episode one, whereas this episode it was just kind of like it showed a lot of football as opposed to like personal
yeah,
things that I could like nitpick. You know what I mean? So I didn't have as many notes, I guess.
neither did I. One big thing that I kept coming back to was, man, I love Quentin Williams. Love the dude's personality. Love the dude's game. He's going to be a game record this year. He was
Yeah.
last year, but he's going to be even more so this year. Dude's a dog on the defensive line. I love that guy. Yeah, not really. Like you said, it's more about football in this episode, which I liked. That may have been the worst rookie show that I have ever seen on Hard Knocks. That was so bad, and that's usually like one of my favorite episodes. Like, what the fuck was the quiz? What was that they were playing for their rookie? I mean, it's meant to embarrass you. Like,
It
guys,
it
just go up, get it over with.
Well, and I feel like that they were trying to do something different to like try to interact with the team, and McCall Hardman was the one that was out there like, what is this? What are we doing? And they're like throwing papers at him and stuff. So it's gonna be like I don't know what they're gonna do next episode because they said that they're gonna have to do something else. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I hope it's
I
better.
I really hope so too. Something that I did read about Hard Knocks is that the Jets were not super stoked that Hard Knocks was going to be there this year. Have you read this?
I mean, yeah, but what team is super stoked that Hard Knocks is going to be there? That means you were dog shit the year before. You can't
Well,
make the playoffs and be on Hard Knocks.
the the situation is that they're not giving as much access as a lot of the other teams have. So we're seeing things that the Jets are. I mean, and I think that this probably happens every Hard Knocks where they're allowing where Hard Knocks producers right go to the team and say, "Hey, here's what we've got. Do you sign off on this for an episode of Hard Knocks?" And they say yes, no, maybe, blah blah blah. But what I read was is that even camera wise and even like or just access wise in general, they are not allowing Hard Knocks as much access as they have in the past. And so we're not getting the full story on a lot of what's happening at training camp for the Jets.
You know, it's interesting. Now that you say it, I'm thinking back to like Tampa, where you had like the cameras in the hallway, you had cameras in every
Yep.
meeting room.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, and you have them in the team in like the units meeting rooms in terms of offense and defense. You have them in the quarterback room, but I don't think I've seen like one in the safeties room or the defensive line room. That's really, yeah, I didn't even think about that until you just
Yeah.
said it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we're going to have to just see how it plays out. I mean, we don't, maybe they give a little more access. I mean, we'll kind of see. But I think it'll be interesting at the end of this because they usually go 5 or 6 episodes just to kind of see like what kind of access that we do get and if there's a little bit more, if or if they completely kind of shut it off. I don't really know.
Yeah, was that
Um,
Bobby Sala's call?
I don't think so. I think that starts with the GM is what I would think, but it could be. It 100% could be. I don't really know until we're a little bit bigger and have access to talking to NFL head coaches. I'll definitely let you know next time I ask. Um,
Fair enough.
but I think that does bring up a little bit of a topic. Do we really need the preseason?
No, I mean, To a certain extent, yeah. Like you got to get sharp so the first 3 weeks of the season aren't terrible, but you're just seeing dudes get injured. Like,
Yeah.
I
Let
mean,
me let me
in the
read
same
from.
vein though, I look back. I just look back on the Broncos last year, and Russ didn't play a single preseason game, and we know how our offense performed for the entire year. So, you know what? No, I'm going to change my stance. Yeah, we need the preseason because I saw how bad it was without it last year.
But maybe what about like just expanding an NFL roster, keeping the same timelines, but just doing like joint practices with teams as opposed to doing a live game. Because here's
I
why.
mean,
And a lot of these injuries did happen at practice, but here's just something that like I took a few notes on some notable players that have gotten injured so far this preseason. So for the 49ers, Ray McLeod is expected to miss the entire start of the season because of a fractured wrist. Sean
ooh,
Bradley of the Philadelphia Eagles torn Achilles, so he's out for the year. Um, Mike Gesicki got a shoulder injury at training camp for the Patriots, and he's gonna be out for a few weeks, so they don't know if he's gonna be ready to start the rest of the year. Jalen Ramsey went surgery to repair a torn meniscus that he got at training camp. Uh, Devontae Adams, this was just a couple of days ago, uh, limped off with a leg injury, and they don't think he's crazy injured was literally the quote from Josh McDaniels, but they're not 100% sure what the length of the injury is. I mean, those are just some of the notable players that I had noticed, and it's not. The other big one. I'm so sorry. Myles Garrett left practice on Tuesday, walking slowly with the trainers, and then same sort of thing with Denzel Ward. So the Browns were not doing great at training camp. I mean, why not just expand the NFL roster to 65 players as opposed to what it is now, and then have longer training camps to try to determine who those 65 players are going to be? Is it because, I mean, I get it. Some dudes are gamers. They're not good at practice, but they get into a game and a switch flips, and they're a completely different player. But do you think that it's necessary if these injuries are going to keep racking up that at the end of the day do prohibit these players to make money that they otherwise would have been owed, or not owed, but maybe due?
I mean, NFL doesn't have guaranteed contracts, so I mean, the Chiefs could cut. Theoretically, they would never do this. They could theoretically cut ties with Patrick Mahomes tomorrow and be off the hook.
Right.
Um, and I go back and forth, right? Because you look at it, you name some big names there. I go back to Joe Burrow a couple weeks ago, got hurt during practice at camp.
Still hasn't
You know,
practiced yet.
injuries happen. It's part of the game. Um, God, man, that's tough. Because yeah, I see your point in expanding the roster. My question to you then is, does that water down the product? Where you know those extra couple dudes, maybe they shouldn't actually be there. I think that I would rather make an argument something similar to hockey, where in the playoffs they expand the roster and you get what's called like the Black Aces or a taxi squad or whatever you want to call it, where if an injury happens, you can immediately call someone up because there's that old story of the Broncos were going to Super Bowl 50. I think it was Owen Daniels got hurt in the AFC Championship game. Former CU player Nick Casa was in the stands drinking beer with his buddies at that game, at the AFC Championship game. Got a text from his agent, "Hey, you're working out for the Broncos tomorrow." Like that should be avoided, and I think you could do that by expanding where you don't have some dude that's just sitting in the stands as a fan
Right.
in street clothes coming in and having to play in the Super Bowl.
And it could be as simple as not even expanding the roster, but expanding the practice squad, where
Yeah,
the players are out there, they're still getting paid, but they're there in case something like that were to happen. It's almost like a reserve list or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that makes sense, especially for certain positions, right? Like, think about the positions that always get dinged up during the year: running back, linebacker, tight end. Like, a lot of times, though, on the practice squad, you're not keeping guys like that. You're keeping a
Right.
quarterback, you're keeping, some reserve offensive linemen, which are important. But if you expand it and suddenly these teams can keep an extra back, keep an extra tight end or an extra backer, I think that helps.
Yeah.
I don't see a downside to that.
Yeah. So what's your final stance? Do we need the preseason?
Yes, simply because I want people at game speed, ready to go. Practice speed will never be the same. You're not getting live fire. You're not taking live shots. You saw Bryce Young get hit a couple times in that episode of Hard Knocks. Like,
Speaking
you
of
see
that,
quarterbacks actually get
that
hit.
is something that I wanted to bring up, and I completely fucking forgot about it. Matt Corral got his fucking ass kicked during that game, dude.
Dude, that was brutal. I was begging for them to take him out.
Every single highlight, it was Matt Corral getting to the ground. I mean, how many times does a dude have to get hit where you're just like, oh, either our second string offensive line is absolute booty, or this guy needs to not be on an NFL field anymore because he's holding on to the ball too long and he's going to get himself killed.
That could be a solid mix for Matt Corral. But my God, I was looking up assault charges in the state of Carolina.
Dude.
That was bad.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I'd even written it down, but I just didn't bring my notes from upstairs. That was an absolute ass whooping that dude got. And it's like, it's not hey man, welcome to the NFL. He's been in it for a little bit now. He's been in practice. Like,
oh yeah, he was in it last year.
Yeah.
That was bad. And that's the other thing I don't get about Hard Knocks in particular. Like, I always watch it, and I'm sitting there like, this fucking team's going to the Super Bowl. I was sat there
every single year.
The perennially, the guy who lives on 8-8 back in the day, Jeff Fisher, and I'm sitting there like, this motherfucker's going to win the Super Bowl next year. He's going to be a Super Bowl coach. Guess what he went? 8-8.
Right.
Like, Hard Knocks, that's what gets me, but man, the Jets pass rush looked good in that episode, and I can't tell if Carolina's going to be the number 1 overall pick again this year, or if the Jets can just get after the passer.
The ball. Yeah.
If I'm a Jets fan right now, I'm stoked though.
Yeah, after
McDonald looks like a dog.
Yeah, absolute steal of a draft pick. I mean, him getting his first sack. I mean, everybody was super stoked for him. I mean, it doesn't count on the stat sheet, but it's like, oh no, you can do this. Is really what I think he was able to tell himself because he was so productive in college. And him being able to do that was super cool. Well, awesome. So I think that's we're going to wrap our episode of this Saturday's episode of Out of Office Bros. Scotty L, anything else you'd like to add?
Just want to give a happy birthday shout out to Cooper. That is it.
All right. Well, happy birthday to Cooper. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Wait, should I call him Subway? Isn't Subway his alternate name now?
Well, it'd be Cooper, or it'd be Coop. Yeah,
Subway
Gloman. Subway Gloman, right? Would be the name.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm still campaigning for that.
Happy birthday, Subway Gloman. That's because we're recording on Wednesday. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening to Out of Office Bros. We will be out of office again on Wednesday afternoon. For immediate assistance, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and anywhere that you get your podcasts. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe on all of those channels, and we'd love to hear from you. Best, the Out of Office Bros.